Welcome back everybody. Today we're gonna play Astra on Corrode. Today is day 162 of playing every agent on every map. And today we go from the numerically last agent of all of the Valorant agents to the name-wise first agent of every Valorant agent, Astra. In my opinion, Astra is a pretty good controller, especially on a map like Corrode, because Corrode is a pretty big map, and also Astra is just in general a pretty good smokes agent on any big map. Also, her smokes are pretty big, that allows her to smoke off a lot of areas that most other smokes agent can't really smoke off it pretty well, and also makes it really easy for her to smoke all over the map. The one thing that I don't really like about the Astra is her ult. Her ult has a couple of use cases, but in most cases the other ults are just way better. For example, a Clove ult that can kind of get you more space, and an Astra ult is just not really that great on attack on a map like Corrode. Other than that, going for the defuse with an Astra ult is pretty strong. Also, what I really like about the Astra is her ability to use stars to kind of threaten a stun or a suck, and makes it really hard for the enemies to hold these spaces, and also being able to clear out a lot of corners with her util, making it pretty hard for the enemies to hold the space on attack and on defense as well. Starting off with A-side defense. On A-side defense, in the beginning of the round, you can place a star either right here or right here. If the enemies are coming towards A-side, you can then decide to smoke here to kind of hold the people from even coming into this space, making it really hard for them to get through the different areas right here. You can also play in this corner. Not really on an Astra. I think it is better on, for example, a Euro, a Jet, a Neon, or just any duelist that has a movement ability, because this spot here is kind of open, also pretty hard to get away from. But if you have a smoke right here, you can hold this main space pretty easily. If they've already taken this main space, you can then smoke off this area, making it harder for the enemies to come in. Another really strong smoke that most people don't even realize is this one right here. If the enemies are coming through elbow, you can use a smoke like this, and then you yourself hide in this corner. This allows you to kind of get behind the enemies, because most of the times they're not going to expect you being in this corner. They're going to clear out here, they're going to check if there's anyone else here, and you also have this area smoked off, so you can hold this from a lot of different areas as well, and then kind of get behind the enemies. This is really unexpected and can net you some kills. Other than that, also using your stuns in front of the smoke here in main, also in front of here, as soon as somebody is coming in, can be pretty strong. Other than that, if the enemies have already taken the space here and are coming in from mid as well, you can use a smoke right here to kind of stop the enemies from coming in. But this smoke is not really the best one, because it kind of forces you to play in a pretty bad spot, like in the open right here, or even over here, which kind of leaves you open towards elbow, and it's not the greatest spot ever. So in general, by the way, if you're holding A side, don't play in this area right here, unless you're on like an eco and you know somebody has the elbow area for sure. If you're going for a retake, I recommend that you're using stars on elbow. Most of the times there's going to be an enemy right there, and then use your second star either on top of the spike or to smoke off this area right here as well. It makes it pretty hard for you to kind of get into the site, and makes it pretty easy for the enemies to just play spam. For example, if they've planted in this corner, they can just spam in this corner, do a lot of damage. But in general, it makes it easier for you to take the space right here, and then focus more on defending the space and kind of getting more space on top of the site. Stuns that are pretty good are ones like these. These are pretty unexpected. They will stun all of this area right here, and also the people that are playing in this area right here behind these boxes, making it really easy for you to take both of these areas, and in general makes it pretty hard for them to kind of hold this space if they are playing for a retake. Other than that, using sucks on top of the default plant spots. Default plant spots for A is behind this corner, or right here. Using a suck like this will get both of the people into the open and will allow you to get an easy kill on them. Other than that, what you kind of have to be careful of if you're playing an Astra and you're going into your smoke form and you're behind these one tall boxes, if you go into your smoke form, you won't see it right here, but you can kind of see it. Your head will poke off like behind the boxes, and you will be able to get sprayed through these boxes pretty easily, and also you'll be a free kill for the enemies, so they know you are behind these boxes, so always keep that in mind. Now switching over towards mid, and on mid there's a couple of smokes that you can do, but not really that many good ones. You can kind of block off all of the enemies from coming into mid with a smoke right here, but that also allows them to go into a lot of different spots, also allows them to flash out and kind of get mid control, passive mid control here, holding you from top mid. And it is not really the best spot, but you can then also get on top of here, have a pretty good off angle, and makes it really hard for the enemies to expect you there. Or if the enemies are like hard fighting mid and you're over towards A, you can use smokes either here, here, or even here to kind of stop them from coming in. With a smoke here, you have this area blocked off, allows you to play in this corner, allows you to play in this corner here, just makes it pretty hard for them to take the space. Same thing also with this smoke. This close corner, all the way back here, or all the way over here. And this smoke right here, if you're playing over towards A, holding the enemies from coming in, also allows you to play here close. All of these 3 smokes can be used, but I don't really recommend to use them for your teammates. Mainly use them for yourself if you want to hold that area, or use them for your duo mate if you have somebody that's playing with you to kind of hold the spaces. And now switching over towards B. And on B, it is pretty similar as it is on A. You can smoke off here and kind of hold this space here early, but also even push into the smoke and push out behind the smoke. Fight the people before that, or it can go for this or the other option for a smoke, just smoke off the main area like this and hold this area, waiting with stuns and sucks behind it. Pretty strong and makes it really hard for the enemies to come in. Other than that, what your stuns are also pretty good at is re-clearing this space. So if somebody of the enemies goes into that area and you have a stun, you can use one stun right here, get all of this area, and get a free kill on the people that are playing in these areas close. If the enemies are going for a plant, you can use your Astra star as a marker for a plant. So for example, if you think they're gonna plant below and you're in heaven and it is smoked off and you have an Odin, you can use your Astra star as an approximate area where you have to spam and do a lot of damage on the players that are going for a plant. Same thing also if you're playing towards Link. That is something you can use on defense and on attack, using your star as kind of a marker where to spam and do a lot of damage on the players that are going for a plant or a defuse. Even better if you use a suck, then that means the enemies have a harder time to get away, and then you can just spam. Another thing that you can also use is a stun or a suck into the open to kind of get the people out and then combine it with some util, for example a raise nade. If you're going for a retake, I recommend that you smoke the main area. If the enemies have taken this space here as well and you don't have anyone taking this space and you're only retaking from heaven and from this area back here, using a smoke here can also be pretty useful. Or in general, just using a smoke on top of the spike. What you have to kind of worry about is not to smoke on top. It doesn't matter quite as much on an Astra as on most other agents, but it's still a pretty good idea to smoke below. So take your time, place the star below, and smoke like this. With a smoke like this, you have an easier time going for the defuse and make it harder for the enemies to come into the smoke and fight you. And now over to your ult. Your ult has a couple of uses. One use I actually find is pretty interesting is this one right here. If they've planted in this copy here, you can have your teammates holding the front space, making sure nobody gets in, and then you yourself or another teammate is just going for a defuse in here, making it pretty safe. Or just walling off the main area right here. Can also be pretty good, making it hard for the enemies to come in, and then you can have teammates holding either side, just waiting for the enemies to come in, get a free kill, and make it really hard for them to go for a safe defuse. Or make it really hard for the enemies to stop you from defusing. If you want to use a ult on A, you also have a couple of options. One option being this one right here, kind of blocking off the main area if they're planted right here. It is a pretty good thing to go for, especially if you have another smoke that is placed, for example, right here. Making it possible for the enemies, for your teammates to hold the enemies while they are coming out, having one teammate in the smoke and then one teammate that is just going for the defuse, and one teammate holding outside of your ult, waiting for the enemies to go for a peek through the wall. Or the other option would be a wall kind of like this, going for defuse behind and having your teammates just hold in front. Also kind of worry about the elbow area, or holding the wall here in elbow, making sure that nobody's pushing through. And now switching over towards attack. And on attack, it is a pretty easy thing to get value out of an Astra. You can use a star right here to stop the enemies from peeking early, threatening that you stun, or even just use a recall, making it possible for you to cross over through main, crossing over here, and then having two different angles where you can fight the people from that are trying to stop you from coming in. Other than that, using a smoke right here is a pretty good idea to kind of stop the enemies from mid from peeking you. Then using sucks and stuns in these areas to take this space. Also maybe using a recall star to take this space right here as well. recalling the star, not using it as a smoke to clear out this area, and then pushing further in towards the site. The second smoke you're going to use is either one like this. This one you can basically only use on an Astra, maybe as well on a Viper if you have the orb lineup, but this smoke will block off the CT area, or you use this smoke right here that is a little bit deeper that does the same thing. You have to kind of worry about people playing behind these boxes if you are using this smoke right here. If you are using the smoke in front, you don't really need to worry about. Just hold the smoke, make sure nobody is coming in. Other than that, you can also use similar stuff again here to stop the enemies from playing in a couple of spots. For example, this close corner, or even this close corner with a star right here that is used as a suck or as a stun. Other than that, what is pretty strong, what you can also use, especially on eco rounds, is to use a smoke right here. If you're going through mid, not clearing out elbow, this will kind of stop the enemies from elbow from coming in, also the enemies from CT, and allows you to play inside of the smoke and go for an easy plant right here, and makes it pretty easy for you to take the site and go for a plant. Other than that, there's not really much you can do. What you can do with your ult is a pretty good thing. It is something like this, where you use an ult that is like this. This ult will allow the enemies to play in this close corner here, so you need to be able to clear that out. But other than that, it will block off this area, it will block off the CT area pretty well as well. And you can even push through here with a flash, or if you have an agent that has a movement ability, get on top of these boxes, have a really unexpected off angle, throw a flash through, peek out, and fight the people that are playing behind the wall. Other than that, one more wall you can use to get the plant off is one like this. It's not the best one, but especially if you're on an eco run, you can use this wall pretty easily and go for a plant. Combined with this wall, you're gonna have to use a star right here to block off the enemies from mid from peeking you. Talking about mid, on mid you have two options for smokes that you can use. As you can see, there is the bottom mid part here where you can use a smoke, and also the top mid part. The good thing on an Astra is that an Astra has pretty big smokes, so you can use only a smoke in the bottom part, also blocking off the top part. There are some smokes agents, for example a Clove or maybe even an Omen if you place the smoke bad, that you can kind of spot over the wall. Also, if the enemies have a Sage and the Sage wall's up behind the smoke, they still will have an off angle in mid, being able to peek you from bottom mid. From all the way on top. But with an Astra, you don't really have that problem. Just use a smoke right here. Smoke it off if you want to take the mid space. And if you want to split mid towards B, you can use another smoke on top mid, pushing through this smoke or waiting for this smoke to disappear. Clearing out the close corners right here with, for example, a stun or a suck, or just clearing them out with your guns. Other than that, in general, if you want to take the mid space, smoke here. If you want to take the top mid space as well, like the pushing through here towards B, also smoke the bottom, the top mid area right here, where there is a higher up ground. And now already switching over towards B. On B, it is pretty common that there is an enemy early peeking you here, so you can use, again, a star right here with either a stun, suck, or even a recall to kind of get the space. Other than that, something that is in general pretty good is finding out with your info initiator util, for example Fade or a Sova, where the enemies are playing, and then using your Astra stars in exactly these spots to kind of clear them out. For example, if you have a Sova drone going from this box all the way through site, seeing somebody is close, also somebody is maybe here in this close corner as well, you can use a star here and a star here. As soon as you're going for an exit, stun, suck, making it really hard for the enemies to play in these areas and making it really easy for you to take this space. Also, for smokes, it is kind of difficult on B because you have 3 entries you can smoke. In general, one smoke that you should always do is the one here on Heaven. Heaven is a pretty dangerous spot where the people can peek you from because you can't really go clear it out, so using this smoke right here almost every round is a good idea. The other smoke that you most of the times are going to use, unless you have teammates splitting through mid, is this one right here on mid. It is a pretty good smoke to kind of block off this area and make it really hard for the enemies to take this space, and in general it is a default smoke. Other than that, what you can use sometimes if you don't, if you're splitting through mid and you don't use a smoke on mid, is another smoke right here to kind of stop the enemies from elbow from coming in. Also allows you to play in this close corner here, or even go inside of the smoke, jump up here and kind of hide behind the smoke in this really strong off angle. Even if the people are pushing into the smoke, they're not going to be able to see you in this corner, and makes it insanely hard for them to take this space. And now for ults that you can use, ults are pretty mid on B. For example, if you use an ult that is towards Heaven, you will have part of Heaven blocked off but not really anything else. Or if you want to use it towards mid as well, there is going to be a cubby on the side that people can hide in. So using your ult on B is not the greatest idea with an Astra, because it allows the enemies to play in a lot of different corners. Also, it allows them to kind of jump down here, making it really hard for you to take kind of hold the enemies from coming in towards the side, and makes it really easy for them to go for a retake. So using your ult on B side is not the greatest idea. What you can do, especially if you're on an eco run, is to use an ult like this. But this ult is not a great one. You can go for a plant behind the ult right here. The enemies will not be able to hear it, but it also makes it insanely easy for the enemies to play retake and kind of even push you through as soon as you're going for a plant. If I had to give Astra a rating from S to F, I'd actually give her the A tier. I was debating on putting her in the S tier because an Astra is pretty strong on most of the maps, and in general also her util and her smokes are pretty strong on a map like Corrode, but I wouldn't give her the S tier because her ult is just not quite as good as on other maps, and it makes it pretty hard for you to use her ult in a good way, especially if you are on attack. It is a pretty good ult on defense just to go for a defuse, but other than that, on attack there's not really that many use cases, and you kind of give the enemies a lot of space if you're using an Astra ult on a site. That would be it from me. If you want to see any other agent on any other map, write it down in the comments, and if you want to see anything else fun related, write it down there as well. And as always, don't forget to like and sub, and come say hi to me on Twitch where I stream almost daily. Have a great rest of your day, and see you guys very soon. Bye!